Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. So today on the channel, we're gonna talk about things that preppers never do. I should probably say things that preppers should never do. There's that old saying, do as I say, not as I do. We remember when mom and dad used to tell us that, right? Well, you probably already forgot. But that's what we're gonna be talking about today. So let's get to it. Now, one of the first things a prepper should avoid doing is living in the inner city. For obvious reasons, that's where the zombie hordes are gonna be. Yes, I said zombie hordes. When you deprive people of their Netflix, their skip the dishes, their high-speed internet connections, they are going to revert to their reptilian style of brain function, that brainstem behavior that we commonly associate with the breakdown of society. Living in the inner city is where people are most technologically interdependent on one another and where it's hardest to eke out an existence which is truly self-reliant. Now, I'm not saying that all 90% of the population who live in an urban environment are going to be screwed. There's a lot of tough SOBs who live in the core. And in order to survive in some of those places, yeah, you have to have a lot of survival smarts. But what I'm saying is trying to move to a place of lower population density is going to be an asset. You're just not going to have to deal with a lot of that stuff. So preppers tend to operate on the periphery or out in a rural environment. Another thing that we as preppers should not do, even though most preppers probably do these things to some degree or another, is smoke cigarettes, drink alcohol, everything in moderation. But what I would caution against is addictions, because if you are addicted to something and the supply chain breaks down, you are not only going to be struggling with withdrawal from that substance, which is going to be the inverse of what it did to you. A lot of people will end up putting themselves in dangerous situations in order to acquire those things, because we're all familiar with the power addiction. We see what people will do nowadays to feed their addictions. Imagine what they would do under those circumstances. A lot of people just think, oh, I'll quit when the time comes. Things are going to be bad enough already. You don't want to have to deal with that. So my advice would be that preppers absolutely should learn how to control the ingestion of substances which are not good for you. One thing a prepper should never do is wear clothing that is going to make you vulnerable. As we've been basking in this beautiful October weather where we're seeing these record temperatures, I'm guilty of wearing flip-flops for the last 3 days. They're so damn comfortable. You slip them on, you slip them off. I've even been wearing flip-flops at the gym. I'm starting a new trend. But I realize that as a prepper, that's not something you want to make a habit. Put it this way, if an emergency happens, it's going to be when you didn't change your underwear that day and you're wearing flip-flops. That's when it's going to go down. It's just Murphy's Law. So I would advise you to wear clothing which is going to allow you to have protection from the elements. So shoes in the summertime are probably the most important thing. Having adequate footwear. In the winter time, one of the most important things is making sure that you are wearing clothing that should your car break down, should you have to run outside at a moment's notice, or maybe you need to help somebody who's stuck in the snow. And what's going to happen if you're just wearing running shoes in the winter time? So make sure that you have the proper attire. So a lot of people say I look like Riddick. A lot of people go a step further and say, you know what? I think that guy's on the juice. I think CP is on the hot sauce. I think CP is cranking like a madman because he's got a muscle here and there. Well, the fact is I've trained for 10 years and there's a reason why we'll never, ever touch any sort of performance enhancing supplement like that. The fact is, if you are supplementing with testosterone replacement therapy, growth hormone, or you're just juicing for the aesthetic value of it, you are going to be at an extreme detriment when the supply chain breaks down and the trucks stop rolling and you can't supplement anymore. You're probably going to grow boobs. You're going to take on a lot of feminine characteristics that are not going to help you out in a situation like that. You are going to lose muscle mass. You're going to be
low energy. It's just not going to be conducive to who and what you want to be in a situation like that. I want to be intact and I want to be the best I can possibly be. And in order for me to do that, I need to make sure that I'm free from any sort of supplementation, that in the absence thereof, there's not going to be negative consequences. So if you're struggling with low testosterone, what I would recommend you do first is focus on your diet and focus on exercise. One of the best things you can do is eat clean and do high intensity compound movements, deadlifts, squats, and sprints. If you run full bore as fast as you can, that awakens something primal within a person. So I would challenge you, I don't care if you're 200 pounds, 400 pounds, push yourself to the limit. Maybe not to the very limit, but push yourself really hard doing exercise that requires the activation of large groups of muscles, and that is going to naturally stimulate the production of testosterone. And in my personal opinion, that's one of the best ways to train. So no, I'm flattered when you say that you think I'm on steroids, but I can tell you, having trained religiously for the past 10 years, I can spot a person who's on the juice from a mile away. And quite frankly, my physique doesn't match up with that, but I appreciate the compliments.
So another thing that preppers should avoid doing is relying solely on one source of media for their information. It's very important that you tap a broad spectrum of media sources when you're trying to suss out what is true and what isn't. When you're trying to do information gathering in a crisis situation, there's going to be a lot of conflicting opinions, and a lot of them are going to be contradictory. There's going to be different narratives from the mainstream and alternative media sources. And usually you have to take elements from all of those reporting agencies to get different pieces of the puzzle, because there's going to be elements of truth to most of them. This does not mean that you entirely disregard the mainstream media because you have an antipathy towards that form of corporate media. And there is a lot of alternative media out there that is actively pumping out disinformation for their own personal gain. So a prudent prepper will take all perspectives into consideration and then base their decision on that to see them safely through a crisis situation.
Another thing that you absolutely should not do is start a YouTube channel, work your way up to 600,000 subscribers, have half the people in the town know who you are, know what you're about, be aware of all of the survival gear that you have. Do not blab about your preps. This is a classic example of do as I say, not as I do. Now, obviously, preparedness for me has become a bit of a livelihood. But if I could have a situation where nobody knew who I was, where I could be completely anonymous, I absolutely would go for that over being prepper famous. That's not the kind of famous you want to be, especially when things start collapsing. So I'm not saying that you need to be some preparedness ninja and you need to be overly suspicious that everybody is out to covet your preps or anything like that. I'm just saying that it's better to be low-key for obvious reasons. If something ever were to happen, people may remember that you are that guy that happens to have a lot of prepping stuff. Unfortunately, it comes with the territory with what I do now. The only way I'm escaping that is if I completely move to another city. Maybe I get some plastic surgery or something, grow a beard, try to grow whatever hair I possibly can. Maybe I can get a hair transplant or a wig or something, or maybe I should just jump on the juice. And that way, when the shizzy hits the fizzy, I'll grow boobs and people won't know who I am. No, I don't think I'll do that.
One thing a prepper should never do is be completely oblivious to their surroundings. This is called situational awareness. Situational awareness boils down to having a wide angle vision of what's in front of you. A lot of people have a very narrow purview when they're out and about through their days. They're not looking at everything that's going on. And wide angle vision is a concept of not being hyper focused on one thing that's in your line of sight necessarily, your smartphone, whatever it is you're doing, but it's trying to maintain just a constant general awareness. This doesn't mean you're looking over your shoulder all the time at every single person. It just means that you're taking stock of what's going on in the environment at all times to a moderate degree, so if something were to pop off, you'd be ready to deal with it. Let me know if there are any hard and fast rules that you guys can think of for preppers to live by, things that you should and shouldn't ever do. What are some things that some preppers do that irritate you? Maybe there's certain things that I do that irritate you or you disagree with. Let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you found it interesting. Thanks for watching. Canadian Prepper out.
The best way to support this channel is to support yourself by gearing up at CanadianPreparedness.com. The best quality products at the best prices. Use discount code SURVIVALPREPPER, all caps, all one word, for 10% off. Thanks for watching. Stay safe.